Greetings, my name is JC,
And I'm Ian.
and this is the Gamer's Gaiden. In this episode, we're going to be talking about spending too much money in video games.
Spending too much money on video games.
Yeah, it happens a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, but before we get into that, if you really want to help us out with the YouTube algorithm and stuff, give us a thumbs up and click the subscribe notification because we make some weekly videos on this channel. And let's get right into it. So, first thing that we're gonna do is what have we been playing?
Yeah, what have you been playing this week, JC?
So the new expansion pack to Stellaris has come out,
Ooh.
called Ancient Relics, and I got it. It came out on Tuesday, and I've been playing Stellaris basically all week. Um,
Did you finish one game in that time?
no, my game did end, but not due to me winning. I only made it to the mid game event,
Ooh.
and yeah. So I guess I'll go into it in a little bit. So the new expansion pack has a new mechanic of dig sites, basically,
Okay.
where it adds in some miniature storylines where they're kind of like 2 to 5 or 6 parts, and then you progress through them with your scientists, and it basically gives you a story if you want to read it. And if you don't want to read it and just kind of go through it gives you certain perks like minor relics that you can kind of sell or collect, and it gives you major relics which can give you bonuses that you can use in game. And there's a whole list of the relics that are available on their wiki page. So
That's kind of cool.
the mechanic adds in a little bit more to do in while you're building up your empire in the 4X game. I really enjoyed it. It's got some similarities to the existing quest lines that happen with the anomalies, but they're kind of quest lines instead of just segregated anomalies that happen. Though there are some anomalies that happen where it will, like this is the previous content that was available in the game, where there's the anomalies that'll like be turn into beacon points that you can get to, and then you have to go to those to basically discover what's there to basically end that like quest. But instead of it being any um, order that you want to go to them or can go to them, because sometimes they're an enemy space, so you might do that last and then conquer that space and then do that anomaly in the area.
Okay.
It's just on a planet, and then you go through the different phases of it, and they get harder and harder as you go along. And there's like a critical success chance and stuff like that, and they can lead into a whole bunch of different things. So I had a couple of cool ones where there was one where there was a tomb planet, and it had a really good amount of tiles on the planet so that I could develop it. But then it actually turned out that as I completed the dig site on it, it actually turned into an Ethodrake, which is one of the monsters from the Leviathans pack. And there was another one that just it gave me it was just a quest line where I had to dig into it and put resources into it, and it allowed me to create an ancient race that was really good at doing a specific thing. I got to select a list out of like 6 or 7 different races, and no, I could choose out of 6 of my planets, and then I could select where one of the 3 races could go on,
Okay.
and then I could reuse it every now and then to basically populate my empire with different races, which is kind of cool because they had a different races have bonuses to doing certain things. Like some of them are better farmers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So each of them had their own perks. But so yeah, that was really really cool. So I started a new campaign. Every time I start a new campaign, I start create a brand new race. So it's a little bit different, though some of them are a little bit same. Like I played a few Imperial races and I played a few Democracy races, and I made the game try to last a little bit longer, meaning that the end game year I made it 100 years later, so that the game would last a little bit longer, and just so that I could play through the content and with the ancient relics a little bit more, since it added in a bunch of new content.
Yeah.
And the mid game event of the Great Khan happened. Before that happened, basically, I had a guy to the north and a guy to the south of me, and they were democratic, and I was imperialistic economic. And so basically, they didn't like my ideology and they declared war on me. I bet I fought them off, and then we were at peace again. And then my entire civilization was like, all the factions in it were like, we want to kill the Ether Drake. So I was like, okay, I've got like 7K fleet. I can probably do this because my tech is really good. I was completely wrong. It just cut through everything very,
Shit.
very quickly. I think I did like 25% damage to the Ether Drake, and it was only to the shield, so like it didn't really matter because it regens shields anyway after you're done fighting it. And then since I was basically had no fleet, both of them, those democratic allies, were like, "Oh yeah, by the way, we don't like your ideology again, so we're gonna attack you." And I had no fleet, so as I lost some territory that I had gained from them, and then I tried to fight them back, and I was succeeding at fighting them back because I had a pretty good economy, because I made my race really economy based. And then all of a sudden, the Great Khan spawned up, and he was actually right beside me. And then he started going straight through my entire base. So I was just like, okay, fine, I'm going to be your vassal. And then since I was his vassal, I basically had to deplete 20% of each of my different resources over to the Great Khan since I was his vassal. And I was just losing all of the resources at an alarming rate. And once two of them hit zero, since I was already at a war, I had lost some very key planets due to the war of the democratic races that were allied in fighting me due to ideology. I basically lost happiness in all of my planets, and there was revolts and buildings burning down and a bunch of different things that were just not good happening. And I was just like, I can't fix this because like literally everything but minerals was negative, and it was at like plus 350, and it all of a sudden was only at like plus 30 due to everything that was going wrong, and then none of my workers were working, and everything
Shit.
just basically everything but my capital was basically just not liking me. My factions went from like 70% liking to like 40% liking. It just it
Just a
might
big
have
old
been,
collapse.
yeah, it might have been fixable, but it was way too much work, and I went from like third place to like seventh place or something like that.
Out of
19, I think.
well, I
So
mean, that's
that's
not
not too bad.
horrible.
Yeah, I was in the lead by like 1,000 points to the fourth place. And for context, the first three places were ancient empires. So like they start off with like end game tech and stuff like that and really large armies. So they're going to be like
Yeah.
the first few places depending on how many you have. So yeah, I spent um, the week basically after work playing that game pretty much every day. And yeah, and then I was just like, I gotta start another game. So I'll probably start another game like this coming week or the week after or something like that. But the new content's really, really enjoyable. If you have any of the old content, it definitely adds in enough content for it to be worth it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sounds like you're having a good time with it.
What games have you been playing, Ian?
I mean, not anything as crazy as Stellaris. I've been playing a little bit more of Let's Go Eevee. I still don't like it, but I am gonna finish it.
How many badges do you have?
Let's not talk about that,
Okay.
cause I don't like playing it. But I am excited for the next one.
Cool.
So, but I did pick up Darkest Dungeon actually for my Switch. I had it on PC
Right.
before, and it is really fun. But the Switch is kind of a really great home for it.
Yeah, especially if you really like the on the go stuff.
Yeah, yeah, and
Mhm.
it's again, it's more of that like you can pick it up for 15 minutes
Yeah.
and then put it down.
Mhm.
So a little bit of that, not a ton, but this was a big week for VR.
Mhm.
So I picked up Blood and Truth.
Cool.
I'm about halfway through.
Okay.
It's good. It's
Yeah.
really good. I mean, I know anyone who's watched the previous 17 episodes know that JC is probably way more the VR guy than I am, at least content like discussion wise.
Well, this is like a crime story you were saying.
Yeah, yeah. It's very much kind of reminds me a little bit of like, it's like The Getaway,
Okay.
the old PS2 game.
Mhm.
Because it's set in London,
Mhm.
so everyone's got that wonderful accent,
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean it moves a little on rails, but the movement is fluid enough. You do have a little bit of control to kind of pick direction in that.
Oh, so it's kind of like a rail shooter with like.
A little
Okay.
bit, but you kind of get to choose your path.
Okay.
And then, sometimes you'll encounter like a door,
Right.
so you'll have to like pick the lock, or, maybe you'll have to like interact with other puzzles. Like I've had to take screws off of a casing,
Oh,
and
that's
then
really cool.
like um, mess around with electrical components,
Eh,
like pull out capacitors,
right.
snip wires.
Does it take place in like the 70s or something, or
No,
in
it's like
the
current
current day? Okay.
current day. So it's really neat, and there's been some really interesting sections because they do incorporate a lot of climbing components.
Oh,
I
okay.
know you can play it with the controller
Okay.
instead of the move controllers,
Mm-hmm. But the
but
move
from what I
controllers are an
oh
option.
man, from what I've heard, the controller, it still has your hands.
Right.
You can only see your hands,
Mm-hmm.
and if you're playing with the controller, you have a pair of hands that are like
Really close together.
yeah,
Yeah.
and like handcuffed here.
Yeah, I've
Whereas
played.
with the move controllers, you can like
Yeah, I
there-
played one game where you could use the PlayStation controller to actually like move around and grab things as like a component of the gameplay.
okay.
And I forget what game it was, but it was actually really interesting because like you could actually like go off and you hit one, I think it was R2 or something to like pick up the item, and then you'd have to like move it onto like onto like a platform or something like
Okay.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that being okay, but I don't know. I feel like if you were playing this with anything other than the motion controls,
Right.
you're kind of doing it wrong.
Mm.
Because I've had so many really cool moments.
Right.
Because it really is like playing an action movie.
Cool.
I was climbing some like scaffolding,
Mm-hmm.
and I was hanging on with one hand, and a dude comes running out, so you grab your gun and you're like, trying to shoot a dude while you're hanging with one hand, and then
Right.
put your gun away so you can continue climbing.
Oh, okay. That
Yeah,
sounds really, really cool.
and like so you can have like two of the larger weapons
Oh, okay.
on your back, like one on each shoulder,
Right.
and then two sidearms.
So can you like move and then click to equip or something like that?
So you reach back,
Right.
you get a little vibration,
Mm-hmm.
and you grab
Mm-hmm.
and pull forward.
Oh, that's neat how that realism is in there.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
you have same with like the sidearm.
Oh, okay.
It's down at the waist. Like all sitting down, I can be
Right.
a lazy asshole and
Mm-hmm.
play this. They do have a comfort mode.
Oh, okay. That's cool. Yeah, you can just sit on a chair in front of your television or your couch in front of the television and just.
Yeah, like I think I've played everything like this in my typical gaming pose. So
Yeah.
like, but yeah, it adapts to where you are, and
Right.
yeah, it's like there is an easier setting which puts a laser sight on everything,
Okay.
which makes aiming way easier because you do have to actually aim down the sight.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's my only kind of gripe
Right.
is you're only going to get all the achievements for the game if you go non-laser sight,
Oh, okay.
and it is unlockable
Right.
throughout the game, but it does take some time to get there, and you would have to unlock it for each weapon, I believe. But
Interesting.
there are some really cool things. I am not a smoker at all,
Mm-hmm.
but I found a cigar
Mm-hmm.
in a safe,
Oh,
which I
okay.
had to break into, which was sweet. And I picked it up and I was holding it, and I found a lighter, and I actually you can
Oh, open up like a Zippo?
yeah, it was a Zippo, yeah.
Okay.
So you can flick it to light it. And I was like, that's super cool. And I lit the cigar and it's burning, and I put it up to the mouth area just to see if there would be
Yeah.
any interaction, because I know in some other things I expect you to die, you can, if you put that up, you'll get something.
Right.
And I'm like, nothing, that kind of sucks. And I unintentionally breathed in, and it picked that up
Oh, okay.
somewhere. I don't know where.
Maybe it was just coincidental timing.
It was not, because I've tested it out several times.
Oh,
If
okay.
you put it up and actually it will light up, and then if you exhale forcefully,
Right.
like a deliberate you'll get smoke. I
They
have
must
no.
be, they must be using the camera and the microphone on the camera to pick that up.
They have to be,
Because there's no microphone as far as I know on the Move controller.
but it
so
was so cool.
that's definitely cool.
It's
It's kind of like part of the culture too. Like not not entirely, but you know what I mean. Like in a lot of movies, like a lot of like
Oh yeah, like I mean,
gangsters and stuff like that
you're a
smoke, and
British gangster.
yeah,
Absolutely, you're gonna walk
you're
around
gonna have your
smoking a
pack of
cigar.
smokes. Yeah,
Um, but yeah, a lot of fun. About halfway through, I think it's only around 5 to 6 hours,
cool.
but it's
So you can
really
finish it in a session or two.
yeah. I'll be done it by next week, and I'll kind of give you my full. This is what I think of the story.
Mm-hmm.
But there was something else that came out this week, and I did finish it.
Yeah. So
So I'm
let's.
gonna tell you what I think about it right now,
Cool.
and that is Trover Saves the Universe.
Yep. You were really excited about this
I
game.
was super excited about this. So I had played Justin Roiland's first game,
Right.
which was accounting. I played it ages ago at a VR arcade on the Vive,
Okay. Yeah.
and
Yeah,
I'm
I
like,
think you mentioned that in the last episode or the previous one. Yeah.
it was accounting was the weirdest thing I had ever played.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was like scrolling through their game list, and I'm like, what the hell is accounting? So I like loaded it up, and then playing through because it really doesn't tell you anything.
Right.
And then when I was like, oh, it's Justin Roiland from Rick and Morty.
Right.
I'm like, that explains why this is so insane.
Mm-hmm.
And then they re-released it on PS4 as Accounting Plus,
Yeah.
which had some extra content as well. And again, if you have a PSVR and have not played Accounting Plus, download it.
Cool.
It's not expensive. Probably less than $15. It's like 2 hours,
Okay.
but it is 2 ridiculous hours. You will not have a stranger experience in VR than
Right.
that. But moving on,
Trover
Trover
saves
Saves the Universe is, I to me, it has been one of the most perfect executions of a game in VR.
Oh, okay. Wow.
And again, I haven't played a ton in VR. A lot of what I have played tends to be more interaction based.
Right. Yeah.
Things like Accounting Plus.
Mhm.
I Expect You to Die.
Yeah.
Job Simulator. Things where you can just like interact with your environment.
Yeah.
Even to some degree, the Rick and Morty virtual reality,
Yeah.
which it was okay.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's a platformer, and it's a platformer that you're in.
Right.
Now, I didn't play Astrobot or Moss,
Yep.
which I know you have experience with.
Moss is more of a puzzle game than a platformer, I would say. But Astrobot, I know I said, and I think the first episode I was super excited to play it.
Still
I
haven't played it.
haven't played it.
It's like right over there, man.
I do.
It is. I'm looking
You're
at it
looking
right
at
now.
it, yeah.
I'm not looking at the camera. I'm looking at Astrobot.
Yep.
It's right underneath Anthem is above Astrobot.
That's because
Shame that man.
That's because I beat Anthem more recently. It's on the top of the pile.
Right, and you never played Astrobot. Anyways, yeah. So to me, this has been. It was an amazing execution of being in virtual reality.
Mm-hmm.
It puts you in a chair. You're a race of people, the Chairopians,
Oh, okay.
who sit in chairs. They have a controller-like thing in their hand, which they
Mhm.
use to interact with the environment. You do see the hand reach out and touch things occasionally. You don't
Right.
have the option for motion controls. It does have to be the controller.
Okay.
You can play it not in VR,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like you'd be missing the point if you're playing it not in VR.
Yeah, it was from what I saw. It's definitely made for it.
Yeah. The immersion aspect of it is so incredibly fun.
Cool.
You have tons of like random dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
You can listen to characters. Like I feel like they've recorded hours and hours of dialogue for each individual character,
Right.
just for like if you're sitting there not doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
And if you like the writing of Rick and Morty and just how obscure things get and are,
Uh-huh.
Trover Saves the Universe is like right up your alley.
Okay.
It's a lot of fun. A little bit of puzzle stuff, but not a ton.
What kind of puzzles does the game have?
They would be mostly you do at some point get like a grab ability
Okay.
with your controller. So you look at something, like you look at an object and you can like grab onto it,
Okay.
and you can adjust, like move it in the environment.
Mhm.
It'll follow your sight line.
Okay.
You can adjust its depth,
Cool.
and sometimes it's like throwing that stuff.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's dropping something on a pressure plate,
Mhm.
that kind of stuff. It's not the puzzle. The puzzles aren't super hard,
Okay.
but sometimes they just like they involve a little bit of like precise timing.
Right.
So sometimes you might have to like use Trover's attack to knock something up
Oh, okay.
because you have full control over Trover.
Mhm.
Uh, you run him around, you beat up people with his beam sword, which is looks just like a lightsaber.
Mhm.
But yeah, you're moving
It's
him
not a
around,
lightsaber if you call it something else.
and then he activates these like checkpoints essentially,
Oh, okay.
and when he's on one of those, you can jump yourself to that point.
Oh, okay.
So you're constantly unlocking points and following him.
Oh, okay. So you're like in an area doing a bunch of stuff. You move Trevor forward, and then you move
You jump,
yourself up there.
you jump and catch up to him.
Okay.
You can adjust you get the ability very early to adjust your height,
Mhm.
which is amazing in the combat scenarios because I found it was a lot easier for me to look down
Right.
on what he was doing than
Okay.
where his enemies were and kind of play it that way
Mhm.
than trying to look at him in the distance
Okay.
and judge the depth.
Okay.
And not that I had issues judging the depth, but it was easier to look down upon it as opposed to look out at where it was.
Okay.
If that makes any sense.
Not really. I'm gonna be
Okay.
honest with you.
That's okay. If you play it, you might understand a little bit more.
Yeah.
Just
I
because
think if I saw it, I
it's
might
the
understand.
not necessarily getting the full depth,
Right.
or maybe someone's kind of like slightly over a rise
Okay.
and just being higher, you can see that.
Okay.
There is a collectible throughout the game.
Mhm.
These green power babies,
Mhm.
which are hidden like everywhere. I was lazy and I didn't collect all of them.
Fair enough.
I missed a couple. I should probably go back and get them because there is some kind of achievement for getting all of them.
Okay.
What I did really enjoy, and I do enjoy every time they do it in any VR game, and I feel like it's almost a necessity in every VR game.
Okay.
They have a garbage can off to the side with a little like basketball net.
Yeah. Net above it.
Yeah, like
Okay.
right above it. And then there's like little bits of paper debris
Mhm.
scattered around the ship, and you can like flick it. You can't pick it up and drop it in.
Okay.
It doesn't give you that ability. Even when you have the grab capability, you can't
Oh.
pick it up and drop it. You have to like, it's like flicking it. You can look at it and you like just like poke it from that angle.
I gotcha.
So you're trying to get baskets. You
Mm.
get an achievement for getting one. You get an achievement for getting 10, and then you get an achievement for getting 100 of them.
Wow. Okay.
I'm up to 25.
Okay.
30.
Okay.
I stopped at 30.
So you really have to like spend time to do this.
Yeah, it takes time, and
Mhm.
like you like that was how I knew about some of the additional dialogue
Right.
because like they're like really like this is what's going on.
Mhm.
Like we're just hanging out.
Yeah.
We really need to get going.
Mhm.
Can we get going?
Right.
Like stuff like that. Yeah.
Oh, like they're pushing you to keep on moving.
Yeah, and I'm just sitting there like trying to flick these little paper bundles
Yeah.
into the garbage can.
That sounds very fitting for the author of that.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Also, actually, in Blood and Truth, in their little safe house, there's a garbage can
Oh, okay.
with a net, and I mean that you can grab this paper ball and throw it.
Right.
There is an achievement for getting it in.
Oh, okay, cool.
I don't know if there's multiples.
Mhm.
I only threw one, and I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm gonna keep smoking my cigar and shooting people. But no, Trover, if you enjoy Rick and Morty,
Mhm.
if you're an adult, it does ask you at the beginning your age.
Oh, okay.
Like I get, apparently they have a kid-friendly mode.
Oh.
When
I
but
wonder,
what was
I would
was
almost want to play
fun?
the game through the kid-friendly mode just to see what the jokes are.
I am kind of curious to go back and check that out, but I know when I selected the like I'm an adult,
Mhm.
Trover said something like, "Cool, I won't tell your parents." Like, so I don't even know if there necessarily is a kid-friendly mode,
Oh,
but
maybe if you select like that you're like 13 or something, they'd be like, okay, then just don't tell your parents. Close the door.
yeah, pretty much. But and there is some like free DLC coming out for it as well in like
Oh,
a
neat.
couple of weeks.
That's cool.
So
That's nice of them.
yeah, you know what? For $40, it was about 5 hours. It was exactly what I wanted.
Cool.
You know, I can't complain about the price because I feel like what I got out of the experience was exactly what I wanted.
Right.
I spent exactly as much time as I wanted to in that universe.
Yeah.
And the fact that they're going to throw me a bone with some extra content in a couple of weeks
Hmm.
when, I'm
You'll probably add
looking for
another couple
something
of
else to
hours.
play,
So
yeah, like, sure, I'll jump back in there for a few more hours
that's cool.
for a couple more jokes. So, yeah, if you dig Rick and Morty, and if you enjoy, like,
Like fun, short little VR
like,
experiences.
yeah, like light puzzle
Hmm.
platforming with combat, you might also enjoy Trover Saves the Universe.
Cool. Cool.
I'll let you borrow it.
All right. So going on to um our segment for today's episode, spending too much money on video games. So first we're gonna start off by saying these are some stupid games that we spent way too much money on. I'm gonna start.
Yeah, man.
Friggin' third birthday. I hated that game. So I guess I'll tell the story about this game finally,
Hit me up, man.
since
I
I
want to
think
hear this.
I think it's popped up in the show like 3 or 4
Yeah,
times
you keep
over
using
references.
third birthday as an insult, and I never played third birthday, so
So it was a really big
I just
pair.
laugh at. I like inside jokes. I feel like
Um,
I'm a part of that one now.
yeah, my one friend and I are kind of like I guess the only person who really know about this. But I was really into Parasite Eve 1 and 2 whenever it came out. I didn't necessarily like the second one's story as much as the first one, but it definitely was its own game, and I did enjoy both of them. So the third one had come out, and it was like number of years after, because the second game came out in I want to say
It was still on the PS1.
two. Yeah, it was still on the PS1. It was like 99 or 2000, and the third birthday came out. I'll put the actual date here, but I think it's like 5 or 6 years later. So it was
Well,
a
yeah.
good amount of time. It was on the PSP, and I was super excited for the game. And whenever I'm really excited about a game, a lot of the time I'll only really watch like 1 or 2 of the gameplay trailers because I'm like I don't want to be spoiled on what this game is. I want to kind of like have the surprise of that.
Yeah.
I do the same thing with movies. I'll only really watch the first international trailer if I really want to see something because then it's not going to spoil. Like I've only saw one trailer for Endgame, for example, and then
I
I
mean, to be fair,
stopped.
you can watch all of the trailers for Endgame. They give absolutely nothing away in any of the
Yeah, I
trailers.
heard some of them were kind of lies too. They put in
Yeah,
some,
there's
yeah, which is I think is a cool concept. But anyway, so I kept the information limited on this so I wouldn't be spoiled about it, and I heard that it was going to be a little bit more action oriented, which it is, and I was fine with that because during that era, games were a little bit more action oriented,
yeah.
and for that style of game anyway. But I still felt like there should still be more of a connection to the original story and stuff like that, because I have the book, I have the movie, and like I've played the games. I have the soundtracks. Like I'm not the biggest fan, but like I like Parasite Eve. Really cool character, a really cool idea, and then Third Birthday came out. So I was at my friend's house the day that it came out. I went there after work, and my friend was playing a game, I think on the 360 or something like that. And I was sitting in one of the chairs, and I was just sitting there on my PSP playing the game. And I played it for between 1 and 2 hours.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden, I just kind of paused the game and just started staring at the PSP. And like I was talking and saying, "Oh, this is kind of cool. Oh, that's sort of neat. Oh, this is weird." And my friend was like, "JC, are you okay?" I'm like, "I don't like it." And then so I went on a huge tangent on why the game sucked. And he's like, "Maybe you should give it a chance." And I'm like, "Yeah, I said that 30 minutes ago." And he was like, "Oh." And then so I really disliked the gameplay. I really disliked how they kind of like took everything from the first and second game and sort of ignored it and just basically made a game with the character with a interesting jump mechanic because you could like jump to different areas into people or something like that. But like it was nothing like any of the powers or abilities that could be even remotely similar, in my opinion, to like the original mitochondria things that were going on in the first and second game. And I just genuinely did not like the game. So I put the game down, I took the UMD disc out, and I just moved on. And ever since then, I've just had a disdain for the series because it took what I really liked and then just made an abomination of a game.
And we've
And
never had a Parasite Eve since.
no, we haven't. And I'm kind of glad actually because, like, what are they going to do next time? Something even more fucked up? Like, I'd rather just see a remake, like the Resident Evil remake that they did with 2 on the first one. I think that'd be great, and I think a lot of people would enjoy it, and they would better spend their time doing that. And yeah, so I know some people liked it out there, but even the critics and a lot of user reviews at the time and now that like I've looking at them, they're not that great in comparison to like the previous games. And so I kind of feel like I'm not alone on that, for at least from a fan who played the first and second one and went on to play the third one. Yeah, and that's why I spent too much money on it because it was like $50.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been
It,
a full price
yeah,
PSP
they're
game.
like 49.99 or something
Yeah.
Canadian, obviously. But yeah, and it was a major disappointment. Probably, yeah, stupid game I spent way too much money on. Your first one, Ian?
Yeah, this story's way shorter. Um, as I've mentioned a few times before, I
Mm-hmm.
do have another little show that I do with a friend of mine,
Yep.
and we I went to a local gaming store. They had like a sale on, I think it was like 3 games for $10
Right.
off of a rack, and I was talking to the guy there because
Mm-hmm.
I talked to him. He's a really nice guy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm looking for. Any suggestions? And he's like, like we're kind of picking through stuff. And, I found a couple of things. I'm like, this might be kind of shitty.
Right.
Like I was looking for stuff that was going to be kind of bad.
Yeah, because you're doing best 2 of 3s in your series.
Yeah, best, usually at least best 2 out of 3.
Mm-hmm.
And this, my whole plan around this was like, bargain bin titles. So we were going to
Yep.
play one round of one thing from this game.
Yep.
And then move on to the next one. And it was going to cost me $10,
Yeah.
which is great. So, yeah, I'm like, okay, I think I picked up like one of the like Suzuki GT
Mm-hmm.
for the PS2, which was all right. I mean, I haven't played a whole lot of like motorcycle racing
Right.
anythings, but it was okay. Controlled fine. I picked up like a snowboarding thing, and it was acceptable.
Yeah.
And then I picked up GI Jockey 3,
Right.
and no idea. Like we go through menus, we're both like we have no clue what's happening. We pick, I think, horses. I think we selected them.
Yeah.
I don't really know. And then we get into a race, and I found the button to essentially beat your horse.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like a horse beating simulator.
Mm-hmm.
It lasted for 30 seconds, and it was done. There was a winner. It wasn't me, and I'm not mad. Like I don't hate it because it wasn't me.
Right.
It was 30 seconds of gameplay. It took us like maybe 5 minutes to get into a game, and we're both like, that's it. Like,
yeah, it's just one racetrack. It's you just one lap or whatever, right? Like it's one race. It was kind of funny whenever you told me about this game. I thought it was funny because actually you didn't know what this game was before
I
you
mean,
picked it up.
no, technically it cost me what, $3,
Right.
and I think $3 was too much for this game. Even if you want to say the other ones were $5 a piece, and I got this for free, this still costs too much. This game sucks.
Yeah. But what I was saying
It's
is
a
like
horse beating simulator.
you didn't know what this series was, and you're like, why would anybody make this game?
Why
And
would
I was like,
why would anyone make it? Why would anyone play it?
horse racing is actually really, really popular in Japan. and it's made by a game company called
It
Koei,
is made by Koei.
and they actually have a whole bunch of these horse racing simulators, and it being probably the most popular in Japan and in parts of Europe for horse racing, they have a game series where, or a few of them where they actually have horse racing simulators and like you manager and a whole bunch of stats and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, that's kind of neat. I know what that is. I've never played it before, but
Doesn't Koei also make Dynasty Warriors?
Dynasty Warriors, Romance of the
Yeah,
Three
yeah.
Kingdoms, a bunch of RPGs.
Where's my Lubu on a horse? Not there.
Maybe it's a DLC pack. It probably isn't, but anyway.
Fuck that game.
Yeah.
You got it. What's your next one, JC? I strongly disagree with this.
I agree why you strongly disagree with this, but there's a reason why I put it on this list. So the game is The Bouncer,
Boo.
and it's a great game,
It is a
but
great game.
I was disappointed just because it was a full price title, and it was way too short. I was done with it in an hour and 20 minutes, and I played through the game, and the game's aspect was, oh well, you can play through multiple different ways, and there's like a path A and a path B in a couple of different spots. But whenever I played through, I think I beat the game like 7 times or something like that.
That's decent. That's
But
what?
my
That's like 9 hours.
yes, but still, it's not necessarily the amount of time I spent with a game that didn't make it worth the money. It was the fact that each of those playthroughs were very, very similar. And it was early in the time where video games kind of had like its replay value is playing the same short game over and over again that started to become popular in the PlayStation 2 era, because there's a lot of games like Devil May Cry that's very
Yeah.
short. And I just felt really, really gypped. I felt like it should have been like one of those cheaper budget titles. And although the graphics were really, really great for
It
the
was
time,
beautiful.
yeah, it was kind of an example where it's like, yeah, I can see them going towards what CG film, like the CG clips look like in the future.
That game was beautiful. It was an amazing drinking game
Mm-hmm.
because you would drink when you finished the game,
Oh yeah.
and that was enough to get you
Hmm.
pretty drunk. But yeah, man, it was a
But yeah, I enjoyed the movie. I enjoyed how it was an interactive movie. The action was fun. It was just the replay value to me, which was I think part of its selling point, just didn't kind of meet its expectation. Therefore, it always kind of sat like a little sour
How
for
many hours
me.
did it take you to finish Anthem?
More than 10.
Okay, fair enough.
Like at least I got like 15ish hours out of the game.
Yeah, but you were doing the same thing over and over again after hour like 2.
Well, I was doing the same. No,
I'm arguing here for the bouncer. I feel like the bouncer was worthwhile.
I think it's a good game. I think it's like a 7 out of 10. It's worth a playthrough. I don't think it's worth anything more than that. And anybody who
And
gets
you
it,
don't think it's worth $70?
yes, that's the main. That's the reason why it's on this list. Is because I don't think it's worth $70. I even didn't think it was worth $70 at the time.
I think I think because I got mine after release. I got mine a little bit later. I feel like I paid like $30 for mine.
I pre-ordered
That's why
my
I'm
copy.
kind of yeah.
Yeah, I pre-ordered my copy. It came out in January, which is my birthday month, and I got it for my birthday gift. And yeah,
Okay, that's you know what.
like
All right.
that's the reason why it's on this list. It's not because it's a bad game. It's because I felt like I spent way too much money at it. It really disappointed me because it felt like a rental. And you used to always
Yeah.
categorize games in the rental, the rent or buy category, or don't touch, right? Don't touch, rent, and buy. And this was definitely to me a rental because there was good two-player combat fighting game that you could play, which my friends and I had some enjoyment out of, but we didn't play it that often because it was sort of repetitive.
But you could
You
play
could
you could play through
unlock.
the story multiplayer, couldn't you?
I
I'm
don't
pretty sure you
remember,
could.
but the you could unlock a bunch of characters, which is what its replay value is for. But it's
Also cool.
like it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't worth the full price. It's like a $30 game at the time at most, and I
Yeah.
could have rented it for like what $5 or $8 or whatever, depending on where I got it from, and like rent it for 2 weekends, and then probably got as much gameplay out of it that would have cost me $15 max, excuse me, out of renting it.
Yeah, like I'm pretty sure I bought mine for $30 when the Sony store was going out of business.
Okay.
So
So
yeah,
you bought a digital copy of it too.
no, I bought a physical copy.
Oh,
Like
okay.
I mean the Sony, like the
Oh, the actual
physical
physical.
Sony
Wow, I
store.
forgot about the
Yeah,
Sony
there used
store.
to be back
I'm
in the
all,
Stone Ages. There used to be a Sony store where you could buy a PlayStation 2
I
or
think there still might be. They're
accessories.
just very limited
Yeah, it's
areas.
probably not all over. And they had a cabinet in the back with PS2
Yeah.
games that were all like locked up and like 40 copies of the Bouncer.
Mm-hmm.
They had so many copies of it. That's probably why it was so cheap.
That is one of the reasons why it was so cheap because that was one of the reviews after the fact instead of the previews. A lot of them did mention in the magazine that I was reading that the game is very repetitive and it doesn't really warrant extra playthroughs,
Yeah.
other than if you want the extra characters. And it's like, okay, yeah, that's exactly my feeling from it because I literally beat it 3 times the night that I got it.
Well,
Like
yeah, I
I was
mean,
just
it
like
doesn't take that
that was the
long.
first time that ever happened to me though. It was just like, oh, this is a thing, and it thankfully made me aware of that type of stuff, and I was really cautious about buying games at full price after that point.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's why that's on the list. Your next one?
Yeah, I got one more. It's Britney's Dance Beat.
Why did you buy this?
So it came as part of a package.
Okay.
I I went to a convention. I found it on a table. Like I found some other games on a table.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was Final Fantasy Tactics
Right.
and the strategy guide, and I was like, "Oh man, that's so cool."
Mm-hmm.
And the guy was like, "Yeah, $40 for both." And I'm like, "Oh man." I'm like, "I'll give you 30." And he's like, I really wanted $40 for it. And I'm like, "Well, how about you throw in Spider for the PS1 as well?"
Okay.
Because I mean, I'd never played it, but I'd seen basically like a thing about it in a Game Pro that I had when I was
Right.
12. Anyways, um, he's like, "Yeah, okay, I'll throw that in, but you have to take Britney's Dance Beat as well."
Okay.
And I'm like, really? Like, I'm like, I'll do 45 and not Britney's Dance Beat. He's like, nah, $40 with Britney's Dance Beat. That's my deal. And
Something's going on.
I'm like, fuck, okay, fine. So, I mean, granted, $40 for what I got was
A good deal.
fantastic.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was
especially if Tactics and the Strategy Guide is going to be about that much money around that time anyway. So.
yeah, like it was a solid deal.
Mm-hmm.
And
Black
then
Label or Green Label?
Black Label.
Nice.
Yeah.
Continue.
And yeah, and dude was like, "Yeah." And he turns to this other guy who was like right next to him. He's like, "Fuck you. You owe me $50."
Oh,
And
really?
like, yeah, because I guess the dude next to him's like, "There's no way anyone's gonna buy Britney's Dance Beat."
Right.
And he's like, "Man, I'll bet you money that they will."
Right.
Sure enough, I was that sap who took his copy of Britney's Dance Beat.
Damn.
And now the thing is, I have a copy of Britney's Dance Beat sitting on my shelf. It didn't cost me a lot financially.
Right.
It just costs me a lot emotionally. I have played it. I think I played through it.
Oh,
It didn't
okay.
take very long.
So
There's
you're
like,
kind of like in the situation like, while I own this, so I may as
yeah,
well
I'm
play
like,
it.
I might as well know what it plays like. I
Yeah.
think there's like 5 songs.
All right.
It's not good.
So is it ignore, a rent, or a buy game?
It's rental
All right.
for
Cool.
sure. I mean,
I mean, that's
you
better
wouldn't
than
you
ignore.
wouldn't want to buy it,
Uh
but I mean, yeah, if you can find a blockbuster out there with a copy of this sitting on the shelf, yeah, go right ahead.
huh.
And you rent Britney's Dance Beat for the PS2.
I
You'll
mean, if you can find a blockbuster, welcome to the '90s.
Yeah, I know, right? But anyways, it's not good. And then
Yeah.
the thing is, it sits on my shelf, and every time someone's like looking at my PS2 games,
But it's a good
that's
story
like
to tell.
the first game that they see, and they're like, "Why do you have Britney's Dance Beat?" And I'm like, "Fuck, all right, I gotta tell you the story because at least it's not like, oh, I just went to the store and I bought Britney's Dance Beat." I'm a huge Britney Spears fan.
I would say the game has some intrinsic value because it has that story behind it.
It's got the story,
Yeah.
but I still spent too much money on that game.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Cool. All right, so let's go into times that we got cheated out of money on video games. Can anybody guess what the first game is? Anybody?
The Bouncer.
No. But you mentioned it during the bouncer. It's the Anthem.
It is Anthem.
Anthem. Yeah. I think we've kind of gone over this quite a bit in the channel, and some people might be tired of it, or some people might not be. Who knows? But yeah. It's not that the game kind of was uninteresting because it had a good concept, and like I did say, I played it with my own friend, and
Yep.
for some part of it, it was definitely enjoyable. It just wasn't what was advertised and not complete. Therefore,
No,
a lot of us felt cheated on. Um,
that's totally reasonable.
yeah. And the only interesting point I'll add to that is that I find it equally as interesting and extra emphasis on putting the cheated out of money section for is because they had their roadmap. They've slowly deleted a bunch of stuff from the roadmap. The Cataclysm thing was finally released. For any of the players who were still or are still playing it, bless you, but maybe move on. But they were all annoyed on the Reddit because, if you're still on the subreddit, you're one of the true fans if you're still playing it on
One
the
of the 7
subreddit.
people that's still playing.
Yeah, and they released it, and then they totally basically changed what their forecast is, and they're kind of like backtracking on a lot of stuff and not able to basically complete any of their objectives and stuff. And all I've got to say is, okay, I understand that Dragon Age 4 was canceled. I'm talking about the real Dragon Age here, people. The one that was canceled because of Anthem, not the one that they're currently working on. If move on, go back over to Dragon Age 4 second version and make that good. And please save BioWare. That's all I got to say about that. What's yours?
So, I mean, mine's at least a positive redemption story, a
Mm-hmm.
little bit. No Man's Sky.
Right.
I was so disappointed. Um,
You and everybody else, man.
yeah, oh yeah,
Like there
absolutely.
was a
Like it
lot of
wasn't.
defenders as well, but like they were definitely in the minority. They were just very loud.
Well, that was the thing. Like after I think I played for 4 hours,
Right.
and you kind of like you get started and you have like actual stuff, and it's like, yeah, I'm doing this. This stuff's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And then like I checked all those boxes and I jumped to my next galaxy,
Okay.
and then I'm just like, that's it.
We're done.
There's nothing else. Like there's no other anything.
Yeah.
There's nothing to do.
Did you ever make it to the center? Because I know like a part of the whole aspect was like figuring out was like at the center of the universe or whatever. And I remember reading a lot of people were like they did it, and they were super disappointed because there's literally nothing there.
Yeah. No, I didn't make it that far.
Mm-hmm.
I realized that there was nothing else to the gameplay loop other than, okay, well, I had enough to jump, so grind more, jump again
Rinse,
until I
repeat.
get to the center.
Yeah.
Um, get more resources. If I see a cooler ship, buy it from an alien
Right.
that I really have no interaction with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it fell so incredibly flat. Though I will say, I did download the when they released the huge update for it.
Yeah, because I've heard that they've actually they fixed quite like not everything, but like quite a bit of stuff to actually
They've
make it
changed
passable.
so much,
Mm-hmm.
and like there's actually quests to do now and stuff to make you feel like you're doing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You can interact with other people. They do have a VR update coming in the near future, and I think that'll be pretty wild being able to be in a ship
Right.
flying around. I mean, I know that they have I think EVE Online has
Yeah, they
a,
do.
and then there's also oh, that other one. There is another space combat VR game for the PS VR.
Oh, okay.
I cannot think of it. Someone's gonna tell me what it is, and I'm gonna be like, oh fuck, Elite Dangerous.
Oh, okay.
Elite Dangerous. That's also on VR. But yeah, I mean, this being something that I already own, I don't have to buy something else. That'll be kind of fun being able
Right.
to do that, flying around in space, shooting at stuff
Mm-hmm.
in VR. But yeah, man, for the most part, it just kind of bummed me out. So I'm not gonna go on about it forever, but Yeah, I'm glad that they've fixed a lot of it,
Hmm.
but the fact that I paid $80 for this when it came out,
Right.
I played it for 4 hours, and I'm like, well, fuck this. What's next?
Yeah.
So, you got another one, JC? You got
Uh,
another heartbreak story for me?
so the next game is old MMO, and there's a few reasons why I put this on this list. The game is Rift, and it's a game that I believe might be free to play. I don't even care if it is now, but it was a monthly payment to play the game of your standard like 14.99, and
On
the
top of purchasing the
on top
game.
of purchasing the game, which was like $50, I think, because it was a
Okay.
PC game. And so the game's gimmick was kind of like world events where there'd be these rifts all over the main map and they would open up and then monsters would just kind of pour out of them, and the idea was to beat the monsters and drive them back into the rift and then close the rift basically. And every now and then there'd be like a larger event that would happen. I think if I recall correctly, it'd be like every month or maybe every week or something. And there was also a main storyline as to like why the rifts were happening and some little normal MMO quest lines that you could do, but they were so vanilla that they kind of didn't really matter to the point of like you having to do them because the rifts happen so often. And granted, like I think I played the game for 2 months, and it, it was kind of neat in the respect that it was like, oh, neat, like here's another rift, let's go close it. Oh, there's another rift, let's go close it. Rinse and repeat a ton of times over because like one would happen I think every 30 minutes or something like that. And if you've never played the game, it's akin to like if you played like Destiny or Anthem, and they've got like the main global events where like anybody can jump in and help out and stuff like that. This is one of the instances where they did that for the first time. I don't know if it was the first, but it was definitely like they took that and that made it its main mechanic.
Okay.
So because I know they did that type of stuff in WoW, but like that wasn't WoW's main mechanic, and like there was a couple of events that I think happened in EverQuest too, if I recall correctly, that like they were kind of like global events that like a bunch of people could jump in on, but it wasn't those MMOs main mechanic. Whereas this, it was a natural thing that happened constantly, kind of like it naturally happens in Destiny 2, where it's like, oh, like thing open and there's tons of bad guys coming out of it and we gotta stop them and stuff like that, get some extra loot and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of like the same thing, but it was just tiring. And what really kind of drove it like through to really make me put it on this list is the following Gen Con. I don't even think it was less than a year after the game had come out. They gave away Rift for free to everybody, and
Yikes.
some of the grab bags had 2 copies of it. And like I got one. I went with like 4 or 5 people, and like some of them had 2 copies in their bags, and some people were like just throwing them in the garbage just because they just don't
It had no value.
had no value to them. And people had already stopped playing it, and I guess they thought maybe we can save it if we give the game away at these conventions and stuff like that. But yeah, because I went to Gen Con that year and I got a free copy of it, and I'm just like, oh, cool. I already paid $50 for this. And it wasn't that they gave away a $50 game for free. It was just like the game's crap anyway, and you're trying to save it, and it's not working. So yeah, um, that's the game that I put on there too. Your next one, Ian?
Fable
Mm-hmm.
for the Xbox. I so I had been my friends and I had been reading about this for months, and we were so excited. Because it was going to be a multiplayer experience, like a multiplayer RPG. You get to make a character, and then depending on decisions that you make will change the physical appearance of your character. If you're a real like asshole, you're gonna look all like gross and stuff. Whereas if you're like a good heroic dude
Right.
or lady dude, whatever,
This is the
you'll
first one you're talking
yeah,
about?
the very
Okay.
first one. You'll be all great looking.
Mm-hmm.
And then you would go into towns and you have to decide who will talk to people because people will interact differently depending on the decisions that you've made.
Right.
and then it comes out. It's single player. It does have an alignment system, but it wasn't an open world. It was kind of railroady,
Okay.
where you just have set
Was
paths.
it kind of like the open worldness of like having multiple different quest lines that are all super linear to give the illusion of it being open world? Was it like that open world?
Yeah, so you'd
Yeah.
have you'd have some different quests.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like you have it's just a set map
Right.
with different paths. Like, yeah, it'd be like a path leading to this area, and then another path leading to this area,
Right.
and like, yeah, it it ended up being a really good game
Yeah.
eventually.
Mm-hmm. And a
Um,
good series eventually too.
yeah,
I
and
heard
like,
some people had the problem with the third one, but a lot of people
I
that
mean,
I.
I enjoyed all three of them.
Mm-hmm.
I really did. But eventually, and that was the thing because when the first one released, I was not, I didn't have money to buy video games all the time. And I'd saved up for it. I actually traded in a couple of games just to make sure that I had enough.
Right.
And I picked it up on launch day. I was so excited. I got home and I'm like, this this isn't what you told me it would be.
Kind of a mediocre
This
experience.
isn't what you told me it would be. And I mean, I played it, I got into it, and I eventually I was like, "Oh, this is really good." But it was just like you you took my money for what you said it was going to be and it wasn't.
Yeah. I feel like this type of game is something that we could like really make an extensive list of like games where this has happened to people
Oh,
and
for
to
sure.
us. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really curious to see what you guys kind of feel like you might have been ripped off
Mm-hmm.
on. And yeah, like I said, this both of mine redeemed themselves to me at
Yeah.
least, and I I found value in them.
Mm-hmm.
But initially, out of the box, when I threw it in my console and played it, I was like, "What the fuck is this?"
Right. Yeah. And
And I mean, Fable did make me never trust Peter Molyneux ever again.
right. That's unfortunate.
Never again. I
Fair
think you have
enough.
one more.
Yeah, and this is what you just said is actually one of the reasons why I'm a little worried about Star Citizen or Squadron 42.
Star Citizen's never coming out
So,
ever. That's going to
yeah,
be the most expensive piece of vaporware ever. I'm not going to keep going on about this forever, but yeah, Star Citizen is never getting released. I will say that right now.
I backed it for $70, I
You
believe.
are a fool, my friend.
And like I'm really excited for the potential of what it is because it is made by the creator of Wing Commander, and the I don't really care about the Star Citizen aspect of it. It's the single player Squadron 42 aspect of it. And my original thinking for backing it was uh, when Squadron 42 was to come out, if it's like a 10 to 20 hour experience with it, I'm completely cool with that because it's basically what I would be getting if I was going to buy a brand new game at full price and it's
Yeah.
like 10 to 20 hours, right? So if it does eventually come out, I think I'm going to be like, oh, I forgot about this. But it kind of checked a whole bunch of boxes for me at that time. And then as time has gone on, I'm like, yeah, do I even care about playing a space flight game anymore with all these cool features and stuff like that? And it's like, I think it would be neat, but I was in the mood to play it during that time because of certain games that were coming out.
Yeah.
And now it's taken so long for it to finally come out that,
Now
like,
I
I think I installed the original beta of
yeah,
it,
because
or
I was gonna
alpha of
say
it, I
it
should
is.
say.
I think it is in
It's
beta.
not. It's
Oh,
still
it's
an
still an
alpha.
alpha.
I get an email every single week, and it's still an alpha. Yeah, and they're like, "Oh, these are the features we added, and this is the stuff we've added." And it's like, okay, they're still working on it, which is great because a lot of these like actual vaporware companies, they just don't talk about it. At least they're talking about it, which
Well,
gives me some
they
sort
have to
of
keep talking about it. I feel like because it is taken in millions.
the most amount of money that any game has really ever taken. It's yeah. So I'm worried about it that it might be a game that I will have been cheated on. But if it
Gone.
does come out and it's like 10 to 20 hours and at least decently interesting, then um yeah. It was funny about this. I'll end by saying this. At the time, I was like, "Oh, this game's gonna take like 3 or 4 years to come out, right?" And uh, I'll be able to afford a new computer that can like run Squadron 42 because the requirements are like really high to run it on like higher than medium settings for what they were like basically suggesting and everything. I'm like, oh, I'll be able to afford a new computer. I'm like, I have so much better computer now in comparison to like the computer I had at that time. It's just like, okay, whatever, just give me the fucking game. But it may never happen. So I'm worried that that might actually, yeah, I'm inclined to agree with that because from what like I would have thought that they would have at least been in beta, and I don't know if the beta is just going to be like a few months before the actual release instead of the beta being the long part, and they're kind of switched.
It's going to be the StarCraft Ghost of this generation, except it's at least has a playable alpha.
Yeah, yeah, playable, but I digress. So yeah, uh, that's some games that we feel that we got cheated out on money. Uh, Here are some games that where it's kind of like a neutral point. It's like spending a lot
Just
of money on DLC. Is it bad? Is it good? We're not really sure, but we thought we'd talk about it anyway because
yeah,
it is something that people generally do spend quite a bit of money on, and
yeah,
sometimes a little bit too much.
yeah. No, I mean, and not necessarily just the like. This is stuff that we spend so much money on. It's
Yeah,
more of the
no,
like.
none of
This
these
is
are really
the.
that. Like,
It's more of the like the kind of change in
it's
um
the idea of getting worth of what you're buying.
yeah, and like with something like your free to play stuff,
Yeah.
which you're downloading a client for no cost. You're getting usually some kind of
Mm-hmm.
base content to play with.
And cell phone games fall into this category as well.
Yeah, a lot of cell phone games.
Yeah.
Cell phone games are probably the biggest
Mm-hmm.
offender. But I mean, I know for us both, again, if you've watched this at all, we both play League of Legends.
Mm-hmm.
I know I've probably spent, you know what? I don't even want to talk about it. But
Too much money if you think about just the numeric value of it. But
but
really, the
at the same
question
time, like
is,
I have spent probably hundreds of hours playing that game.
yeah, and it's like if you were to compare how many hours did you put into this one game, whether it's a 10 to 20 hour game or like a 40-hour RPG or something like that, like per dollar, how many hours have you spent on League of Legends
Yeah.
or whatever other game like Hearthstone, and then how many hours have you put into it, right? Because it's like if it's only $1 an hour, you go to a movie and it costs you $15 and it's an hour and a half long. That's way more money
Yeah,
than
now I will say the nice thing about Hearthstone is I've actually I think I've spent $20 on Hearthstone
hmm
because I
like a
bought one
starter
of
pack or something.
actually I bought one of the dungeon packs.
Oh yeah, those are really good though. That's actually like single player content that you
Yeah,
can
because
actually like try and beat
it
these.
gives you a deck, it lets you do that, but they've actually started doing like free events
hmm
where you have like you build up a deck as you're going.
Yeah.
And since they put those out, I honestly have not spent a dime on Hearthstone.
Right.
I don't care too much about the competitive aspect.
Yeah.
I more like the puzzle
hmm
like, oh,
How do I beat this
how can
boss?
I optimize this deck? Like you're giving me X amount of cards, you're giving me neat little abilities. What can I kind of craft out of that?
hmm
Less of like, okay, I'm going to stuff together 20 cards or is it 20? Maybe it's 30. I think it's 30.
I think it's 30.
Yeah, I'm gonna stuff together 30 cards. That's gonna be some ultimate combo. Like I like that it's like, well, here's your three options.
Yep.
Figure your shit out.
hmm
And just like how to best optimize and okay, maybe I took the wrong route this time. All right, back to the start.
Yeah.
Um, it's a lot more fun for me.
hmm
And then you get into the other model of the like season pass
Right.
with things like Fortnite.
Yep.
Rainbow Six does it a
hmm
lot as well.
Even a bunch of games such as like Street Fighter have a season pass with the release of their characters and stuff like that, and
That's
that's
true.
something that fighting games have been doing.
Now
Uh,
I will say that with like the online shooters,
hmm
it's a little bit more. I mean, Fortnite kind of bugs me a little bit
hmm
because I mean, it is, yeah, it's free to play, and you do have to pay for some of that extra content.
Right.
Personally, I swear to you, I loved Fortnite when it first came out as a like base building kind of zombie defense thing.
Right.
Yeah, because I went out and bought it
hmm
as a physical game, and I had so much fun playing it. And then they're like, "Yeah, battle royale," and I'm like, "Nah, I don't really care." And I have not played it since
Right.
it changed to that model.
hmm
But again, like back to Rainbow Six, that's a real cool concept because you're getting new operators with the season pass, like
Yeah.
with you're paying for extra content. Your extra content is actually like, oh, here's like two new
hmm
classes essentially
Yeah.
with new weapons and new abilities. I mean, it's similar to League where
hmm
you're gonna have to pay for a new champ, except
Yeah, but there are ways to get the champions for free, and it's really the
yes.
skins that you're getting for money to make yourself look cool, and that's like
Well,
that's kind
skins
of
get wins.
yeah,
Everybody knows that.
obviously.
If it rhymes, it's real.
Yep. But like to reiterate, our point with this is not necessarily that it's a bad thing or a good thing. It's kind of the situation of like there are the cases where some people have spent way too much money on Bejeweled, even though they've put like 200 hours in the game or something like that, or
And that's just
it's
it.
something to look
It's
at, right?
if you're putting that money in, if you personally are getting the value out of it, you
Yeah.
feel like you're getting the value out of it.
hmm
It's not like you're just throwing it away.
Yeah.
Like if Bejeweled is your jam
hmm
and okay, or Candy Crush, because I don't
Yep.
think Bejeweled has microtransactions.
Maybe it doesn't.
Yeah, and
I'll
Candy
be
Crush for sure
honest.
does. But if that's your jam, if you don't play other games and you're giving them like, I don't know, $10 a week,
Right.
you're spending less on video games than probably both of us,
hmm
and you're still putting that money in for them to continue creating content.
Yeah.
That's kind of the positive
Yeah.
on that. Like it is nice that they do have things with free to play models where
hmm
you can, pay a little bit of money to get something that's not necessarily that's not necessary.
hmm
That's not a I have to have this.
Yep.
Not like some like not like Battlefront 2 where they really had a pay to win
Yeah.
model for a while. They fixed it, and the single player campaign is a lot of fun.
Cool.
But yeah, the pay to win model is shitty
hmm
always.
Yeah, and also in parallel to both the free to play, where it can be shitty or not so shitty, and then the pay to win model, there's also the content model, I would say, where you have like Rock Band and Band Hero, and you're
Yeah,
paying like it's like $3 a song or $2 a song, and you can have a huge library of games and spend a lot of money on it, but in like it really sucks, especially if it's like music that you already own. In a lot of cases, like I think I owned half of the songs that I had bought in Rock Band, but I bought them again just so I could play them in Rock Band because I liked the songs.
and then on top of that, you're fixed into having that on that console.
Yeah.
Now you've got 100 songs on Rock Band for
hmm
your 360.
Yep.
When they release a new Rock Band for the Xbox One,
hmm You're out of
you're not
luck.
gonna you're not gonna buy it
Yeah.
because you're committed to that. Like
hmm
I mean, that might be a bad example. They might be able to transfer it,
I
but
think you can transfer it from Xbox to Xbox, but you can't transfer it from Xbox to PS3.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, so that's kind of just
Some random thoughts on
some
that.
random thoughts on like kind of like neutrally just spending a lot of money on different types of like DLC and extra content.
I mean, ultimately, I still stand by if that's your jam,
Mhm.
at least you're still contributing.
Yep.
You're putting a little bit of money back into that company that's giving you a whole lot of joy.
Yeah, and that's one of the main like I probably am like top three people of how much money they've spent on League out of the people I personally know.
Yep.
And like I don't mind at all of how much money I've spent it. Looking at the numbers, like holy crap, that's a lot of money. But it's like, okay, well, they're constantly releasing patches, they're constantly releasing updates, they're constantly changing it to make it interesting. They're making new champions, they're making new skins, although lots of them are Lux and Ezreal skins. But like,
Very true.
like you are still getting a lot of extra content, and people are getting that for free, and it's just like, okay, well, I feel like I'm kind of contributing to like that factor because if nobody did it, guess what?
It's not
League of
gonna keep
Legends
going.
wouldn't be around anymore.
Yep.
Yeah, or any of those other games. Um, but a new topic and point. Let's talk about a little bit of some people have a problem with this and some people don't, and it's a remakes of games.
Yeah, we thought this was kind of interesting as, I guess, collectors ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of people have that mentality of like, oh, I want to play Super Mario.
One,
Yeah,
it's the one that's been released the most.
yeah, and I need to go buy a Nintendo to play it,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't.
No, you can get it literally on any Nintendo console,
Yeah,
like just about, maybe like 90% of them, but it's not on the Virtual Boy, for example.
yeah,
But
but I mean, really, and there's no loss to quality playing it on the other systems.
more or less, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, and you're gonna save yourself a lot of hassle finding both the console and game. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, Mario's a bad example because you'll be able to find
True, but
an
you don't have
NES
to
and
buy a
A copy of
console for
Mario.
$50 and then get
No.
the game for 5 or 10 or whatever, and then like make sure you have a working controller, and then you plug it into an HD TV and it looks like shit. So it's like, oh, it doesn't look like what it used to or what it could look like. So am I gonna buy a few $100s worth of upscalers or a
Yeah,
crappy upscaler that does adds in a bunch of input lag? And you start to get into this world of like spending a lot of money, and where it's just like, oh, it's on the Nintendo shop for like $6.
yeah,
Let's do that.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And it's definitely playable. And another example would be a lot of the Neo Geo games with the advent of the Switch and the Wii Store.
yeah,
And some of them are actually on the PlayStation Store. They're re-releasing a bunch of the Neo Geo games because some of them cost a lot of money.
yeah. That's a huge rabbit hole because you
Mm-hmm.
needed an arcade cabinet, didn't
Yeah,
you?
so you need the arcade cabinet, and then the
The giant ass cartridges.
yeah, and some of them aren't that bad. They're like I think I got Metal Slug 1 for like $40, but Metal Slug 2 is a couple $100.
Yeah,
It's like there's a collection that came out in the PlayStation 2 PSP era that has all the Metal Slugs up until that point, and the game was like 29.99. It's like, yes, it had some slowdown issues and the sound didn't sound exactly the same, and that's always been my contention point with the emulation and stuff like that. But as these remakes in popular franchises such as Mario or Mega Man and Sonic get re-released and stuff like that, the emulators start to get better because people start to complain about it,
yep.
and they're like, the sound in the most recent Sega Genesis collection is way better than the sound in the PlayStation 2 Sega Genesis collection.
Yeah, actually,
Way
I
better.
I picked up the Genesis collection for my Switch, and
Hmm.
I dig it. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, it's you do get into a little bit of I find a small issue with the release of the collections
Hmm.
is you end up having like 17 different ways to play Shining Force.
Yep.
But again, like Shining Force 1 and 2 they're not cheap games.
No, they're not. They're
So
over $100
I mean, if I'm gonna
if you want to complete.
and if I'm going out to track that down, like I've got to find it,
Hmm.
find a Genesis,
Yep.
like you said, worry about an upscaler,
Hmm.
and then yeah, like you're in real deep or $40.
Yeah. And you get 40 games
Yeah,
or 30 games. So,
the, there's really no comparison. And
yeah.
like then you get into the RPG re-releases, which gets even deeper.
Hmm.
Cuz like some classic RPGs you're gonna have to like a really hunt for,
Yep.
or um, spend a ton of like
Yeah, because a lot of the RPGs tend to keep their value just because of their popular reception.
yeah,
And some of them, which used to cost $60, are worth like $100 to $300, depending on what it is and what condition it's in. And
exactly.
if you just want to play the game, then it's why, like, for example, Legend of Dragoon, you can get that on the PlayStation Classic Store on the PS3.
Yep.
And it's like, I think it's not that expensive. It's probably like $10 or something like that, but it's a
Yeah.
really great game. It was only released on the PlayStation 1, and they may never remake that game or make a second one and stuff like that. You never know, but they've brought weirder things back from the dead, but like if you ever want to go back and play the game, you have that option. And I'm sure maybe with the PS5 it has a bunch of cool backwards compatibility. They might bring back a bunch of those like games and stuff like that, and a lot of the streaming services you can play the old PlayStation 2 games and PlayStation 1 games through that with the PlayStation Now.
Yes.
So,
But that's like, I mean, Chrono Cross is it's hard to find
mhm.
because it wasn't a huge game.
No, it was like a minor seller for the studio.
Yeah, and it was great.
Mhm.
I loved Chrono Cross. It's probably one of my favorite RPGs, and it was I think $10
Yeah.
on the PlayStation Store.
Yeah. And I think it's really great how companies are doing this more and more, because then you start getting things like the archive collections, which we've talked about from Konami, where they're re releasing these old arcade ports. They're not perfect, but as companies do this more and more, they will get better and better.
Yeah,
And if they don't do it that often, then nobody's really putting any R&D and experience into doing them. So as much as I like to say, oh, I'd rather have and play Sonic the Hedgehog because it sounds and plays as it should on the actual console,
they're getting
they're
closer and
getting closer
closer.
and closer. Yeah. And you'll be able to have like re-releases of all these other games and stuff like that that are, arcade perfect
Yeah,
and like original perfect and stuff like that, where
I mean we
they
just
can,
we just got a Konami arcade collection.
yep,
The
for Castlevania.
And then there was a Castlevania as
Mhm.
well. And then Contra is coming out soon
Yep.
too. And even in the Castlevania collection, you had Kid Dracula,
Yeah.
which never was released over here.
Yeah, you have to,
So
like, I had to import my copy from Japan in order to get it, and then I
yeah,
needed some sort of device that played a Famicom or an adapter for the Nintendo.
and you had to translate it too, didn't you?
Well,
I'm
you don't have to
assuming it's
translate it. You don't really have to read in it. It's just a
okay. Well,
platformer. But yeah,
I mean, you get no text, whereas at
yeah.
least in this you do get
hmm
dialogue and
but
story.
to that point, you can use like an EverDrive. We're getting off on a little bit of a tangent, and then patch the ROM so that there is an English patch on some of those old RPGs and stuff like that.
But
Um,
again, that's even more work.
that's even
This
more
way you
work.
can go you don't even have to go anywhere. It is a
Yeah,
downloadable $25 game or
or less. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, and the reason why we put this on this list is because yeah, it's annoying to pay for Mario over and over again because I've bought it 5 times. Or how many copies of Final Fantasy 7 do we have?
like so many.
All of them. Like, and we'll continue to buy them, but uh as long as they're not doing a crap job with importing it and literally not just copying and pasting it over, which unfortunately some of the companies are doing,
It's true.
but as people kind of dive into this style of game being more popular and more companies start doing it, then they start outsourcing a lot of the games
And
to
it's
other
just
companies who are good at doing it.
this just makes it a little bit more accessible. I mean, you
Mhm.
can play Final Fantasy 7 on your phone,
Yep.
and that opens it up to a whole new market of people.
Mhm.
Someone who might not have played an RPG ever, who's like, "Oh, what's this game?
Yeah.
I'll give it a go."
Mhm.
But yeah.
Yeah. So our last segment of this episode is when we spent some examples of when we spent like quite a bit of money on a game and it was actually worth the money. Do you want to start us off?
Yeah, so for most of my points I sort of picked like DLC
Ones that you bought a lot
mostly.
of DLC on them?
And Saints Row 3 was kind of the first that really jumped out to me because I bought every DLC pack for it.
Right.
and I played that game for the better part of a year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I did all of the extra stuff, and then when they started putting out DLC packs for it, I was like,
Cool.
yeah. And like they weren't massive, they weren't super expensive,
Right.
um, but I got value from it.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
I
always the risk with DLC packages is because especially if it's like extra gameplay content, like an expansion DLC, you never really know like is it only 20 minutes or is it like
is it
a few
horse armor?
hours? Yeah, is it horse armor or is it going to be worth like my time and money? Is it actually going to
Yeah.
add any intrinsic value to the game? Where it might be really cool, but it's like you could have given away that for free because a lot of companies they actually do give away like you said the Trover versus the Universe game. You said that's getting a free DLC pack.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
I mean, anytime someone gives you free DLC, it's dope. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
for like kind of the first thing that jumped in my head was Saints Row 3 because it
Right.
was I played it for so long, and then they're like, "Hey, here's some extra missions. Here's a
Right.
few little side stories." And I'm like, "Cool."
Mm-hmm.
That was like the first kind of open world sandbox game
Right.
that gave me more content
Mm-hmm.
that I really dug. You know, and there had been other ones that had done it before,
Yep.
but this one was kind of like it was perfect for me.
Cool.
How about you, JC?
I put Final Fantasy VII on this list for the points that I had just mentioned previously. I've bought this game so many times, and I'll honestly say I do not mind.
Same.
And it's just like I'm. I don't think I have every copy that's been released of Final Fantasy VII because I didn't buy it on the PS4, I think,
I don't have it for my
and
phone,
I don't have it on the Switch.
but I have it on everything else.
But I've bought it a handful of times, and yeah, it's annoying, but it's it's a game I really like, and it's a game that I've played a few times over the years.
The
Like
story stands up.
yeah,
I
and
can say that
I
as
certainly
someone
don't
who's
mind.
playing. Like I'm almost done.
Mm-hmm.
It stands up. The gameplay's fantastic.
Yeah. Your next one, Ian?
More DLC. Fallout 3.
Yeah, a lot of people love this game.
It it was really good. You know, I finished the story, and I was like, the ending was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
At least I really like the ending with Liberty Prime.
Right.
And then they were like, "Oh, DLC pack," and it was um it was essentially like a VR mission,
Oh, okay.
um going through the initial invasion that started the war,
Right.
and just like it was really cool. You played through it. You got some extra stuff at the end. Um, you know, the little like virtual reality chamber
Yeah.
kicked out some extra items for you
Oh, okay.
to take into the main
The main game.
game. And then like at a decent interval, I can't remember how long they were between them,
Okay.
but they put out 3 packs, and it was perfect. They gave you enough time to really take in what they released,
Right.
and then it was like bam, new one. And they increased the size of them each
Yeah.
time, because I think the second one was the alien one, or yeah, second one was the alien ship,
Okay.
which was super cool. I mean, you got a blaster out of it,
Mm-hmm.
which I think was like a disintegration ray.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And then they ended with like a it was almost like a swamp area. Oh, and there was the pit too. I forgot all about the pit,
Mm-hmm.
which was Pittsburgh.
Oh, okay.
That was great. Um yeah, it had like they got progressively bigger because the first one wasn't too big, and then the second one I think had the aliens, which was a little bit bigger, and then you had the pit,
Mm-hmm.
which was quite. It added like a whole other area that you had to go to,
Right.
um, and a story like main storyline there, as well as some side quests,
Yeah.
and then finally it opened up the like swamp area.
Yeah, I find that Bethesda is one of the companies that's really good at understanding how much content to put into an expansion or DLC pack, because
Yeah,
they for the most part, I guess other than horse armor.
Other than
But
well,
the for the most part, like for their actual like core expansions, like there's a good amount of content and they're always really enjoyable. Like with
yeah.
their Elder Scrolls games and their Fallout games and um yeah,
Well, even because that kind of leads a little bit into yours.
hmm
Um, if you want to tell me what that is, JC.
yeah. So one of the biggest things where I feel that spending extra money on a game is definitely worth it is what I call the older style expansion pack. And by what I mean by this is like the Warcraft 2 had its own expansion pack where it added in 24 missions
And it was a
and
like it was a physical release,
yeah, and it was a lot of
but
extra content like new gameplay, new missions, the
I think there's new
boulders.
units.
Yeah, there was. Yep.
Yeah.
New factions within the orcs and the humans as well, because there's the different style of elf and stuff like that too. And the Baldur's Gate games, the Neverwinter Nights games, the Diablo games, and their expansion packs, because you always got like new characters, new content, and maps and stuff like that. And I always found that these types of expansion packs, they're all wildly priced differently. Some of them as expensive as the game, some of them uh, a quarter of the price. It was all over the place. Some of them not worth it, but yeah, I've always really liked the old style expansion packs.
Yeah, man, I'm with you. You
Mhm.
know, the I I didn't pick up some of them, but like the Elder Scrolls stuff for me
Yeah.
was always like really like top notch. And like
Mhm.
you said, they Bethesda had a really good way of pacing their releases.
Yeah.
You'd usually get their first expansion would be a little bit smaller,
Mhm.
and then they just get progressively bigger and bigger. Like I remember Morrowind, you had the Tribunal,
Mhm.
which was kind of small-ish, and it did take place within the current map.
Yeah.
But Blood Moon had its own separate island and this like huge story and like kind of major impacts on your character.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and I really enjoyed the vampire expansion pack for Skyrim. I
oh,
thought that
that's
was
right.
really cool. Yeah, because it added in like a kind of it was sort of like a new area where you had uh, keep to go to and stuff like that and do some
Yeah,
missions and whatnot. And I thought it was really cool. But yeah, I've always loved old style expansion packs and love whenever new games do that type of stuff. And it tends to be in RPGs, but there's always some other action games
sometimes.
and RTSs that have them too. And you had one that you really wanted to.
I've got one more. One time, it was super worth it. Sea of Thieves,
Yeah.
strictly for the day one patch. If you bought it on the first day, you got an eye patch with a 1 on it.
Yeah. I thought this idea, I didn't even know they did this, and you were telling me about it. And I think this idea is really cool because you can't get this anymore.
No, I no.
Hmm.
So I still, not that I play a ton of Sea of Thieves.
You keep on going back to it,
I
though.
do keep on going back to it. They
Every
keep
now and
releasing
then
content for
yeah.
it. So I have to jump in occasionally and see
Yeah.
what else has been released. But yeah, I still keep my day one patch on because
Hmm.
it is a wonderful little joke about every game that's released now.
Always has a
Because
freaking day
pretty
one
much
patch.
everything has a day one patch. This was my favorite day one patch, and this was completely worth paying full price for this game the moment it came out
Yeah.
to get my day one patch.
Cool.
So yeah, what's when have you guys spent the money, and when was it worth it for you?
Hmm.
Where did you feel cheated? How do you feel about playing free to play games? Do you kick back into the community, or do you just kind of coast on no cost?
Yeah.
Let us know in the comments. We will see you guys next Wednesday
Yep.
with our new video, and yeah, thanks for watching.